Right, well, me, Colin, Jai did touch base a couple of days ago, and I've been nominated to chair this, so it won't be me doing all the talking, but I'm going to kick off. We've got a bit of an agenda. So obviously this is the first time we've met as what I think we're going to call the Bureau, which is great. So first thing on the agenda from us really is to share how we see that running, certainly in this first year. We've had conversations with all of you individually, so hopefully when I try and explain it, it doesn't sound too new to you. And also talk a little bit about how we might manage the finances of that as well, and remuneration for work done and what have you. So I think it's quite important to say that we're not presenting this as a complete. There needs to be buy-in from us all for this. We're not dictating terms. But that said, having spoken to you all, I think we're in a place where we more or less agree. And I've chatted to Nico about this as well, and he's more or less happy with the way things are going. So that's first thing on the agenda. We're then going to hand over to Col, and Nico is going to support, but I think, Col, you've spoken to Nico about this, to just talk through prices and wages for next season, which will be great actually, because that'll be the first time we've done that with a bureau. So again, that's to be discussed, but I think there's lots of work that's happened in the background. And then, Rich, hopefully it doesn't come as a surprise if we hand things to you to just have a bit of a chat through the way you might see the Tarentaise project running next season. And then finally, just a bit of chat around coach recruitment for next season. There are a few names have been mentioned by various people, so we thought we'd discuss that as a group. And then I think with Jai, we put one last thing on about freestyle and free ski clinics for next year as a final agenda point to sort of discuss if anybody wanted to take that on board, or what we might do in that space, because we think we've perhaps let it drop off a bit, that area. All good if I crack on? Okay, right, so the Bureau. So everybody who's on the call, we're hoping will be a part of that. So I think when I put the summary email out after the AGM, I said in that email, if anybody wants to come forward and do more who hasn't already come forward, please come forward. And nobody else has, apart from Steve. So that's
actually great. Just quickly to add to that, I spoke to Kim yesterday, and Kim was she was like, oh, I hope they don't think that I'm being lazy, and I hope that they don't want me to do something, but I haven't said I'm going to do it. And I was like, Kim, don't worry about it. Do you know what? I don't think there's enough work for all of us anyway. So,
well, there's probably enough work, Tal, just not enough money.
Kim, just crack on. You agree? As you were, basically, in the words of Jai. Yeah.
Go on, Jai. He's coming early.
Yeah, I just think on this point, I think it's that.
I'm on mute too. I'm trying to tell you.
I am.
Go on, Jai.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So I think it's probably it's one of the biggest changes we've ever done in terms of how we're running stuff, and I think it's come from the coaches, and I think we're going along with it. We'll see how it goes, and I think probably in terms of having the bureau a little bit bigger, I think, than would be ideal. Certainly for this first year is probably where we're at the moment. I don't think we want to have every single instructor on the bureau. That means we have to have an AGM every time we want to make any decision. So I think in a way we want to have it a little bit tighter, but we don't want to start off by having anybody blocked out. So thanks for being here, and that's kind of why that's where we're at. I think in the future, I think we'll bear that in mind. It might not need to be as big as this.
Cool. Well, and I guess that brings us to the fact that I think there'll be some members of the bureau that are far more operational than others. So we might not meet as a bureau that often. Originally, we were thinking 4 times a year. I was wondering just before we came on the call whether maybe we should make that 5, but initial suggestion was we'd have 2 of those 4 meetings with the coaches anyway. So we'd have the beginning of season meeting where everybody'd be there, and then we'd have the end of season meeting when everybody'd be there. Then we'd have a mid-season meeting of the Bureau, and then we'd have a sort of a summer meeting. But I don't know, it might make more sense to have a meeting this time of year and then another one in the autumn. So that would be 5. I think we're hoping that would be a sort of minimum commitment from people who want to be involved, that they'd try as hard as they could to get to most of those meetings, and that would be the base level really. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, I think you and Nico were probably in a similar position, that you just want to be involved in what's going on, not necessarily looking for a big extra workload. And certainly that was Nico's take on things, although he's open to help if needed. And I guess that's something we don't know whether that might happen or not. But if people are willing and they get asked to do stuff, that's great. But in terms of the different roles, we started this conversation before the AGM, so we were looking to do something along these lines, before everybody put their hands up and said, yeah, we'd like to help out. It's great we got a few more heads in the room, but we'd already had a conversation with Ross, so we're hoping that Ross will take quite a big operational role for the Bureau, to really do a big chunk of what Jai's been doing, to look after a lot of the commercial work in resort, some of the work around managing the team and the coaches on the hill and all that kind of stuff. I think in this first year that would be done with Jai, so they'd sort of have a double-pronged attack there, with the potential for that to morph into Jai doing less the following year and Ross doing a bit more. So that's one fair. Well, that's the biggest operational role I think that we envisage. Terry, I haven't spoken to you specifically about this, but I think you've had chats with Jai and stuff. And we were hoping that you'd take a bit of a lead on the off-piste. I think that would be quite a big operational role as well, looking after everything from the kit and to training to safety protocols. As well as anyone, that there's quite a lot goes into that. And it has just been something that I think lots of people have pitched into, but I'm not sure we've ever had an official lead for that. So that would be another considerable role, I think. And then slightly differently, but Rich, well, we'll perhaps leave that until you take the floor, Rich. But Rich has got ideas to do stuff in some of the smaller resorts around the Tarentaise, so there'd be a role that he'd be heading up there. So Jai and Ross would have a similar sort of position, and then myself and Cole would still be on the Bureau. I think we'd be having more of a consultancy role as we have done over the last few years. And then Gav's on the Bureau, but obviously heading up teams, so in a slightly different position because most of what we're doing is based in Val. So that's the kind of the makeup of the Bureau. Anna was invited to come today, wasn't she, Jai, as well? Is that right? You're muted, mate. You're muted.
I thought she was going to come, and she was invited. She got the link, but I think things are pretty flexible at their house at the moment, so I'm not surprised that she's not been able to make a set time.
Yeah, no problems. Okay, so and I think the next stage is really to discuss or to share with you our thoughts around how we would remunerate people for the work they're doing. So because Jai and Ross are going to have a much bigger role, and there's a risk attached to that, because they could work their nuts off all season and then we could make no money, which would mean they wouldn't get paid for their work. So we're thinking of having an upfront guaranteed wage for those 2 roles of €1,000 a month. So that would be guaranteed. So there'd be 10 grand straight away going out there. That would be 5 grand guaranteed to each of those people that would be doing that role. And then at the end of the season, once everything's been paid, including those bills, including the bill from the UK company, which we can elaborate on if people don't know what I'm talking about, but the UK company bills for the use of the website and the work that James Avil does around the planner and the name and what have you. So once all those bills have been paid, there will be, we hope, pots of money left. And what we're going to ask is for people to keep an account of the hours they've done throughout the season, which might sound like a bit of a ball ache, but it's just a habit we'll have to get into. So keep an eye on the work and the hours we've done, and then it's just a case of going, right, well, how many hours of the syndicate has the syndicate done, has the bureau done in total, and then what percentage of that total has each person done, and then that percentage would be their percentage of the profit. So if you've done 5% of the total hours, you'd get 5% of the pot that's left. So Ross and Jai's £5,000 would have already, that's part of their pot. So they would already have had that £5,000, so that would be factored in. So that's not on top of. Jai, have you got your hand up from earlier, or did you put it back up?
I didn't take it down.
Okay.
But I will now.
Okay. You can always butt in if I don't see that somebody's got their hand up.
Well, it's hard to butt in because I turned my microphone off, and so then if I try and butt in, you can't hear me anyway.
Okay. So that's essentially the way we see the money working. It's an imperfect system. I'm not sure we can think of a better one at this moment. There are lots of potential issues around it. I mean, it relies on trust. People have got to keep an accurate tally of their hours. We could look at it and go, well, somebody's hour could be more profitable to the business than somebody else's hour. And then we're going, well, I've made more money for the syndicate, I should be getting more out. But so I think that, we need to review this at the end of the year, but we think that potentially this is the best way to go for the first year. It would be easy if we didn't look at the big picture here. We could say, right, well, Ross has gone and done 20 hours worth of TOs and he's brought in €10,000. Fantastic. Terry's done 20 hours on the off piece and it hasn't made us any money at all. And we're going, yeah, but actually for the thing to work, we need both those roles to happen. So, there's an element of just, we've got to look at people's contributions as equitable, more or less. And if we find that it isn't, we're just going to have to be honest and talk about that in the future. Nico also raised a potential concern that it's quite a nice concern to have this, but if we started to make loads of money, loads and loads more than we currently have ever made, he was saying, look, somebody who's getting a really small percentage could end up getting a lot of money out of this, and would that be right? So, I think everything just points to the fact that we don't quite know how this is going to pan out, but this is what we're proposing for the first year. So do anybody got any questions at this stage? Go for it, Tal.
So have you put a few guesses into that, like just adding up a guess of coaches' hours, total revenue, profit for the syndicate, net, how much the UK takes out? And then I know you can't guess the hours we're going to do for the Bureau, but you must have had a ballpark. We can
have a good stab at it because we've got the season before COVID and then we've got this one that, give us some quite good data. But I'm going to hand you over to Jai. He's probably more likely to have the figures on the tip of his tongue.
Well, I think firstly, I think that's kind of part of the risk of running a ski school and doing all the legwork to make it happen, and in the past, since 2019 was 2019-20 was the COVID season, and we broke even on that season, and the syndicate itself made £8,000 that year, which didn't get paid out to anybody, and that got carried forwards and kind of paid the bills and saw us through. There would have been some money in the bank as well left over, and we didn't go bust because there were some clients that had some money in the bank or whatever. But to actually run the syndicate for that time, we didn't take any money out of the bank. The year before that, it was more like kind of I think it was 30 to 40 grand was left over in the syndicate on the Valdez side. And that's based on slightly more hours than we've done this year. This year we're back. I haven't got the final figures on it, but this year we're looking at about a 30 grand profit on that. The payment to the UK company, there's a role for that UK company in terms of keeping some control of the syndicate. That's why we started doing it. And actually as we started to use it, the role of that UK company has become pretty much the kind of intellectual property that the syndicate uses, and that's the website and the planner and the widget. We've got monthly bills coming out of those. We pay those, and then there might be a small profit that would go to the shareholders of that company. That's me, Paul, Carl, and Gav. Gav's got a small share in that. And for the past 3 years, we haven't paid ourselves anything out of those anyway either. So I guess that's the risk. That's the risk of doing a whole lot of work. The way that this is looking, it looks like it's going to be me taking that risk again, Ross taking that risk again, Terry taking that risk again. And I think that risk came to the fore this December, when there was a travel ban for people coming from the UK and coming and skiing with us. You're looking at a whole another year of doing a whole load of work without getting paid for any of that work. That's the risk that we are kind of with open eyes taking on again. And if it works out, then I think those ballpark figures of kind of 30 to 40 grand, I think are reasonable. And that's based on kind of about 5,000 hours in the syndicate.
Okay.
And Terry, we did wonder whether, and I think this would be for you to think on really, we talked about a sort of guaranteed grand a month for Colin Ross, which if we ended up having a terrible season and we made a loss, that would go down as a cost rather than coming out of their profit share. So, if you think through the role that you might do and go, well, actually, I'm going to be putting some serious hours in here. I think there should be a minimum there as well. Then come. I think you need to say that, and we can do that.
Yeah, I was just going to have a think through, because have we got any planned upgrades of the website or of the planning system, or any? We don't know the massive outlay we might have yet for transceivers, but have we got any?
The website and the planning system is going to be taken care of by the UK company. So, and that UK company bill isn't going to change very much. It's kind of we have a monthly fee come in for James. Is probably one of the biggest costs that we have on that. And then we do some marketing as well through the UK company with the Google and stuff like that. Kate's stuff where we have the digital marketing that goes through the UK company as well. So a lot of those costs are kind of monthly charges that might go up a little bit when there's a big project on, and they might go down a little bit when it's not. We're not looking at that UK company kind of going up and down in terms of what it bills us.
Okay, but say we have a banging year next year and take 40k on top or whatever. The UK company bills from that 40k. No.
UK company will bill us no matter what.
Okay, so that's monthly, and the 30 to 40 you were talking about is after the UK company.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, that's great.
So the principle is.
I haven't got the final figures for this year because I'm still doing bookkeeping. On the way that we work the syndicate accounts is that we work the syndicate. Well, it's a ball ache. We have to do this. We do the syndicate accounts by season, so that runs from December till the end of July. Okay, and then kind of the new season starts in theory the 1st of August. Okay, and we try and keep it simple by not taking too many prepayments from one year to the next. That helps a little bit, keeping the bookkeeping simpler. The annual accounts, which are actually put in from the syndicate, so these are the official accounts that get put in with the INSEE or whoever it is they go to. They're drawn up by the accountant. They're done on an annual basis, starting the 1st of January, ending the 31st of December. That's a real pain in the arse. We have to do 2 sets of accounts. And one is what we call management accounts, and the other ones are the official accounts. So we won't get those management accounts until the end of July. We can use those as a kind of as a kind of ballpark figure to go. These are the kind of numbers that we've done this year, but I can't give you. I can only give you a bit of a guess on that. And the past 3 years have been so different that it's very hard to draw anything from there. You know, so we're coming back to like 1920, which was like I said, £8,000 we had in Val d'Isere, and it's like £2 or £3,000 in Teen, in terms of profit left in the syndicate at the end. And the year before that was better. You know, it's probably more like £30,000 in Val d'Isere, and I was mucking about with the accounts, wasn't there, Gav? Because there's we changed some of the ways that we divvied it up. But yeah, it was more like £12,000 in Teen, I think. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. We've said that the UK bill that we've always paid will go up by 10%. It won't go up by more than that, so we're not going to try and hike that up there. But you know, that those costs are genuine, and yeah, we're not looking to drop that. If, for example, we're not doing a whole lot of work on the plan or the website 1 year.
Well, good. So essentially, the principle is people who do more work will get more out of it. But hopefully, there's an incentive there for people to work because they're getting a share of of the success. I think this wouldn't. So we were saying this would start end of accounting year is July, isn't it, Jai? End of July. So
yeah.
If people are doing hours for the syndicate now, keep a tally of what you're doing, but actually it would go into those hours would go into next year's accounting year rather than being part of this year. One other thing that we talked about, so if we're going to have 4/5 meetings a year, I think it would be any of you have ever been a governor of a school, it would be kind of like a governor's meeting where, I think if somebody's saying, right, I've done 100 hours for the syndicate, we would expect at that meeting to be some kind of presentation as to what's happened in those 100 hours. Some kind of sharing of what people are doing. So there's a little bit of accountability there that when you come to that meeting. I'm not trying to catch people out, but I think that would be good practice for us to share what we've been doing. What else do we have on that? I think that's more or less it for the way we were hoping the Bureau would run. Colin, anything I've missed? Anything that you think of?
No, I think that sounds about right.
Cool. Any other questions from the floor? No. Okay. Well, the next thing on the agenda is to talk through prices and wages then. And Cole, you've been doing loads on this with Nico. Happy to hand over to you.
Yeah, sure. All right, just a little bit of background, just based on our last meeting, and myself, Paul, and Jai had done a little bit of sort of lead up work ourselves, and then Nico, as he does, interjects a little bit with his email, which he put a bit of work into and a bit of effort, and that was good. And then Anna had done some research as well, so we sort of basically collated all that together to sort of review prices. We review prices from two angles. One angle being our competitors, and one angle being a sort of inflationary sort of view of where our prices have been over time. I guess the competitor review, it was a little bit fluctuating, different stories and different, like some of the more expensive people in town that would be our competitors, I'm told actually that's their advertised price, but they don't quite often pay that rate. It's just sort of, they're continually discounting. I think the overall came around that, yeah, we were lower on the pricing scales than we would have liked to have been. We were slightly lower to the mid to bottom, which is not where we wanted to price ourselves. So we definitely felt that this was the time for a good price increase to get us back on track, to get us back in track to where we sort of position ourselves within the market. Then we looked at it quite a lot with the inflationary prices. I guess the only big thing was there was a couple of, like you do with these things. If you'd read Nico's email, probably the compound inflation that he sort of quoted in that email was probably on the upper scale of some different online inflationary calculators coming from, like, the Bank of England's inflationary calculator had it a little bit less, like inflation wasn't as much of a issue. But once again, I think it became clear that for one reason or another over the last 3 or 4 years, we had let ourselves get behind, whether that be from, fears of increasing prices and COVID and everything else. So once again, it was decided that, or it's going to be suggested that we bump up those prices. So we sort of ran through a couple of different, or lots of different scenarios to make it not too complicated to start off with. We kind of, what you might call, set a base rate. So a base, and we did our calculations from there. So the base rate being income to the syndicate for a 3-hour session, like at the base rate. So if we gave that this year, the year just passed, that would be €250. And we worked everything off from that base rate. Once we put it all in, looked at the inflation, looked at our competitors, I think the suggestion is that we should be going to a €300 base rate. So going from €250 for a 3-hour session to €300 for that 3-hour session. Now, obviously, there's going to be fluctuations with numbers of people and all that kind of stuff, and we're going to have to sit down and work that out afterwards, but it's getting the base rate and the wage ratio for the moment. If that's what we're all agreed on or we're happy with, then we can work out all the other figures around there. If we look at that, if we go up 300 to 300, that will be an increase of €50 for that 3-hour base rate, which is a 20% increase. So it's quite an increase, 20%, a fifth. But once again, we sort of debated around whether that was appropriate or not compared with competitors and compared with inflation. And I think on both accounts, we won't know until everybody else does it, but by all accounts, our competitors are doing the same as us or similar. And we need to get back up into that marketplace. So a 20% increase is what's being proposed. I guess before I go into any more, how does that sound?
How did Nico feel about that? Did he think that was a bit undercooked?
After the going around the discussion, and he's happy with that. He's happy. I think in his mind, that is towards the minimum. Yeah,
I had a good look, and I'll just chip in with mine. I was going to say 309, but yeah, just for a bit of psychological pricing and competition pricing and penetration pricing, all those different types of pricing theory. I was going 309 is what I came out with.
Okay, cool. So 309, roughly speaking, what does that give us? That's
about 25%,
is it?
Not a round number, like purposefully like the 99.99. That
exactly that. But because you're going over it, it's called psychological pricing, and I think it gets us just. I don't think it's going to get us ahead of competitors because they still haven't increased their prices on their website yet. Yeah. So we're taking into account all the prices for last year. So it's just giving us an extra 5% to take that into account. That's what I was thinking, but yeah.
Okay. I mean, I just looking at it, I think that comes out as 23.6% base rate increase.
I mean, we can justify it, but then you've got to communicate it to clients. I mean, it could go up. We haven't put it up since pre-COVID. So there's several years lag there, plus the inflation. So you could easily justify it, but in real terms, it's still a massive hike, isn't it?
Mm. Okay, so we're at, all right.
I don't know what,
it really is. Like, but if they just go and look at competitors, they're going to see the same, I think.
Yeah.
So they'll be pissed off, and then they'll look at the competition, and then they'll be like, oh, okay, well.
Well, tell you what, Tal, this Jai's his hand up. We'll come to Jai. It'd be good to hear other people's thoughts, but maybe once you've gone through the wage bit as well, Cole. So there's the
Okay, should we?
Because
Okay.
I think this is a meeting where we should be discussing this, not just accepting what's presented. So Jai, go on.
I would just say that we really need to get the prices out there. We've got people who are wanting to book and they want to know what it's going to cost them. You know, we've got clients that are on hold now for a month because we've said, yeah, we'll come back. The prices are going to go up. I don't think they're expecting to go up as much as we're going to go to, even if we go to 300, if we go to 309. Yeah, it's not a big difference actually. But so the price to the client, that really needs to get fixed, and that needs to get fixed tonight. The wage rate actually, we don't need to rush on that. There might be a few different proposals for that wage rate, if you wait for it to work. I was certainly thinking that, you know, if we wanted to price in some incentives, you know, in terms of ski instructors having incentives to bring clients, we could that wage rate might move according to that. But anyway, but definitely I want to say that the actual base rate price, like Cole's talking about, that has to be fixed tonight.
All right. Well, do we want to open up the conversation before we talk about wages then? Ross, any thoughts?
Yeah, and I'm not sure what everyone else's clients are like, but I have a set of clients that I just know if I ask about 70% of my clients what they paid last year to what they're going to pay this year, they'll have no idea that it's gone from 250 to 309. Yes, there will be some that go, oh shit, that's a lot more money. But I'd like to think I can speak to them and go, you know, right now the whole world's going up in price, and this is it, unfortunately, and I'll try extra hard to make up that extra price. I don't know. You could. I think just the whole world's going up in price. So, yeah.
Give an extra tip.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And then so that's that, and then the rest of it, like it seems like Terry and Nico know a lot more about all the pricing structures, so I'm just not going to comment on that.
Steve, Rich, Gav. Gav, I don't know where you're at with the team prices, but you know.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, I've always tried to stay as close as I can to Val. I mean, yeah, that's a pretty big leap, I think, for team.
Well, it might be a case of going up the same percentage.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah. I mean,
Well, that'd be nice one day, wouldn't it, to get
it, yeah. Well, I mean, I think it was going to go, you know, potentially up to what to match you before this sort of stuff came about. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a bigger increase than we can think that team will sort of take in 1 year. I mean, like, well, it's quite illuminating, a nice situation that Ross, when you said, you know, your clients won't even know like how much it's gone up. You know, it's pretty. That's not all the clients in team for sure. You know, that people will know. You know, like they will notice. They'll notice at welcome meetings, and I think I don't know where that would put it, but I think that's got to be right at the top for team prices. Even now, you kind of assume that stuff's just going to get more and more expensive here as well, but it's still definitely behind, I think.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Rich, Steve, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of see the 300 as the minimum we need to go to. I think we definitely can justify it. And I don't think we should be thinking about it. It's not, if the clients come back to us and say, oh, it's gone up 20%. It has, but really, I'm thinking about it as an increase based on pre-COVID. You know, we didn't go up at all last year, did we? and it's an interesting point, and it has to go up, you know, and maybe we might lose a few clients, but I don't think we've really got a choice other than to put it up. It's an interesting point of Terry's to go to a number like 309, and there's this kind of a psychological argument there, and maybe if we're worried about going to 309, we could go to 303 or something like that, like, you know, and because it is true that we're comparing to last year's numbers for other people. So I mean, I think I'd be happy with 300, but it is an interesting point to go a little bit above. It might be a good idea, but I'm not really sure on that, to be honest.
Okay, Steve.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
I personally think that whether it's 300 or 309, that let's say inflation does keep on being sort of out of control, so to speak, for another year or two. If we don't take enough of a jump this year, then potentially next year we'll be like, well, we have to do another big jump, and then those customers that might have hung on for a year go, oh God, TDC have done it again. They've really whacked the prices up. So I would suggest that if we're going to do it, we take the pain, the so-called pain, this year and get it done with, and therefore we can go much more along sort of whatever the natural rate of inflation is in future years, and it won't be seen as if we're jumping up too much over 2 consecutive years. We'll have just done it in one go.
Okay, thanks, Steve. I mean, the only other thought with 309 is that the tour operators have often said to us that they like how simple our pricing structure is. I wonder whether we're slightly complicating things there psychologically.
Yeah, I mean, the 99p thing, I have to admit, is actually something that's quite annoying.
Yeah, so
like, I kind of, you see through it, don't you? It's like, well, they're trying to make it sound cheaper. It's just really annoying. Like, you just end up with loads of pennies. So actually, you know, our clients aren't stupid, are they? So maybe we shouldn't try and sort of con them in that way. But what Steve, I think that's a good point from Steve. In like, you know, we don't want to be racking prices up by huge amounts every year. This is a sort of back on track, isn't it? We're trying to get back on track, and then after this kind of stormy period, and then we can have a reasonable increase every year.
Yeah, this is definitely a correction year.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it, I think.
I mean, I'm getting the sense in the virtual room that 300 is not enough. If we go a bit more, we just got to pick a figure really, whether we go for a fancy number, you know, or just a solid number. I'd like solid.
So I'll go 309 or 312, but that's just so I can do maths in my head. If the tour ops were smart, they would want 312 or 309 as well.
Why is that?
Because it's just easily divisible by 3 hours.
I'm clearly not that smart to have seen.
Right, you think it was 310 because
Yeah.
it's decimal.
Yeah. Okay, 309, yeah. But there's a better argument for 309 because it's divisible by 3 than there is because we think we might con people into thinking it's slightly cheaper than 310.
That is true. I also think in terms of, you know, prices going up for people and worrying about our clients, I think we're thinking about that the wrong way around in a way. It's not our clients that are really going to be hit by the cost of living crisis. We are much more likely to be hit by the cost of living crisis than they are. I don't mean that. I'm not meaning that personally, but ski instructors are the people that are we're on an hourly rate. They're not on an hourly rate. Or if it is, it's $250 an hour because they're lawyers. So that's, you know, in terms of justifying it, in terms of inflation, we're looking after our instructors. We're not looking after our clients.
Well, and there's been perhaps a slight unbalancing there where we've looked after our clients for a few years. We've got it the other way around. So there's no harm in rebalancing that. You need to pick a figure then, guys. I mean, if we go 309, then you've got to think, right, what's the increment for 3 to 4 people, or what's the increment to?
Well, we'll have to work that out, and there will be a little bit of, like, I don't know, what do they call it, Swedish rounding. up or down to try and make the figures. But if 309 is the base rate, then what we normally do is work out a rough percentage and then apply that to other areas and round it up or down a little bit to make the numbers a little bit tidier, and then go from there. And I think rather than trying to present it all, that's what we've tried to do, is just work on that base rate and know that we will then take that same calculation and move it into all the other areas of what we do.
Right. Anybody against 309? Motion passed.
You need one of those little hammers.
Has Terry just like psychologically done something to us?
I do teach this. Like, I genuinely teach the elasticity of demand and the prices and all that, like, and the psychological pricing, and it's backed by evidence. So I was like 309, 335, and 360 were my three prices.
There you go, Cole.
There you go, Connor.
There you go.
Do any more work?
That's it.
Loving this bureau thing. It's great.
Okay, so 309. Right, so since we're all together, let's just have a look at the wage discussion whilst we're talking about it. I'm just pumping in some different figures to my little spreadsheet. 309 is the base rate. There we go.
I hope you're happy with that, Nico.
Yeah, he'll be delighted, I'm sure. Okay, so I guess then, like you say, Joy, we'll go away from this and do that calculation, and we'll go across our whole product suite and work out the prices for everything, and we'll get that out and we'll base it on that rough percentage increase, which is, if I'm right, it's 23.6%. So I guess then, and this is a big thing that came in with Nico when we're talking about wages. So if we go back a little fraction, if you go old school, Nico kept talking about the commission that was paid. So the commission that the coach pays to the syndicate. So when we're talking about, we've done this, when we're saying commission, it's not the commission we're paying to a TO. This is the commission that the coach, if you have made the assumption that all the money paid by the client went to the coach, and then the coach gives a bit back to the syndicate. This is one of Nico's big sort of KPIs, is like what was that commission rate? And when we'd had it, some of the other elements, we'd put it up and it'd moved to different areas. Basically, that commission rate on what we've just been doing this last year had gone to 25%. So in other words, what was happening?
Sorry, Jai, can you mute your mic? I can hear the background.
Cool. So what was happening? So we'd gone up to 25%, and so that meant that out of the income that came in from a €250 base rate in the wages, like the income minus the wages meant that there was 25% left went to the commission, went to the syndicate. Now, like, that was one of Nico's big sticking points, was that had crept up over the years. It was originally more of a 20%, 21%, and it had snuck up a little bit. So when we started working this out, that was kind of one of his big sort of points. So when we came to this, we'd got to, and I'm just altering our figures, but I'll give you some figures what we had. We were looking at potentially having a 300 base rate with €80 an hour as wages, which takes that commission rate to 20%. To which, from Nico, he's going, Nico was thinking that was good. We also had to try and take into account, well, that's the commission based on the income, but we've also felt that we had to sort of take some consideration to the fact that we worked out that maybe different ways of looking at it, but the actual discount that we would give to tour operators meant that the income came in was lessened. So we did that calculation in a couple of different ways, and it was depending. It's funny how facts and figures look different. So Jai did some analysis just from the amount of commission paid compared to sales. And actually, we only paid last year 3% commission. Like of our total sales, like the amount of commission that was paid was only like, or this is not commission, I'll say the discount, TO discount was 3%, which that seems really small, right? But then we also worked out backwards that if we paid,
that wouldn't include, Colin, that wouldn't include Ski Club of Great Britain discount and kind of locals discount at 10%. That this is,
yeah, like friends and family or stuff like that. Yeah, exactly.
So it's just tour operators that bill us, just tour operators that give us them.
But that's 3% of our turnover, Cole, yeah?
Yeah, so the 3% of the turnover. So if you work that backwards, I think you could work it out. It was the figures was roughly we paid 12,000 euros in TO discount. So if that's 10%, then we've actually paid a tour operator discount on 120,000 euros worth of sales.
Yeah, sorry, just quickly, the easy way to look at this is 30% of all of our lessons booked were a discount rate.
Correct.
Or if you include Ski Club of Great Britain, possibly 40% of all lessons.
Correct. So so if you look at it that way, we've got to take into account we're doing 30 to 40% of our sales are coming in at a discount. So that's which we thought is quite a big chunk. You know, if you look at it that way.
If we're thinking about that, we need to think about the number of sales that are actually sold for more money then as well, don't we?
Yeah.
Because then it's a discount of a higher amount for some of them.
Like in percentage, I think we tried to work it out on percentages, Rich.
If Jai's done that on total turnover, it will include that. If there's 4 to 6 people in the group.
Yeah, true.
So if you did that same calculation
that
for that
was based on total turnover, just to confirm. That's just total turnover for Brother's Day.
Yeah. So if we went back and did that discount, that, like I'm referring now to Nico's idea of the commission, the amount of income that is given back, that the coach gives back to the syndicate. If you move that in, included the 10% discount that would go to TOs, that commission rate drops right the way down to 10%. So Nico wanted us to try and get to a 20%. We'd snuck up to 25%. And we were trying to get it, and we'd addressed that. We realized that there was a bit of an imbalance. We needed to put a little bit more towards the coaches on the percentage front. So if you went with that, the base rate, and I'll do some live calculations in 2 seconds, but if you allow me to calculate on the old numbers, if we had a 300 base rate, 80 euros wages, that would give us a bang on 20% commission. The coaches are giving 20% of the income back to the syndicate. If you put that in with a discount, it becomes a 10% commission. So what we were worried about was if you start getting down to 10% discounts, we need money in the syndicate to operate and do all the other bits and pieces that we're doing. And when it starts dropping down to 10%, the money going into the syndicate is getting quite small. And even to Nico's view, because he did a lot of work on this, that 20% was a good gauge. 10%, even he admitted that was a little bit lower than what we needed. So it was like 20% was good. So we were looking at potentially doing or suggesting or proposing on the old numbers of 300 base unit of a 78 euro wage per hour. That gives us a little bit more wiggle room. It makes the non-discounted commission 22%. So it's not up at 25 where it was. It's definitely corrected towards the coaches. But it also means that discounted commissions, it's gone up a little. It's up to 12%. So it's just given the syndicate a little bit more meat. That's where we were at, and that's what we were sort of coming to this meeting as a general proposition, was that a 78 euro wage. which is an increase of 25%. We were proposing a price increase of 20%. So there's definitely the shift is moved towards the coaches, something that we knew was due on our cycles of ups and downs. We knew that was the cycle for that was to go. Have I confused you enough, or are we hanging in there?
Good.
Cool. So if I now go so I'm going live now because I've got a little spreadsheet that works it out. So if I pump in the base rate of 39, I have 309, I should say. Then if we kept the wage at 78, we're back up to that non-discounted 25% commission, or 24.2. So if I pump in wages, let's put the wage up to 80.
This was my exact, this is what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Cole,
So if we go...
Should I share that sheet with people? And then
Yeah, you can do. You can do it. I'm working on it live. It's a Google Doc thing. You've got it there, Paul.
I'll put it in the chat, guys. If you open the chat up, you should be able to see it in a minute.
Oh, you can actually, if you click share next to leave and then share that window or that screen, we'll be able to see it on there.
Okay, yeah, I can do that.
And then you can talk through. Well, if you wanted, I've got it written down.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's just whether you can see it. I'll see if I can.
I'll put 2 links in the chat. One of the second one should work.
Yeah, okay.
I can see it.
Kill 2 Aussies.
Is that big enough to actually read on a share?
Yes,
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, cool. So if you look at it there, right, if I go back, there's 300 as a base rate in here. You can see that it works out. If we put 80 euros as the wages, it works out, income minus wages is 60 euros, which is 20%. But if we add in the TO discount, that goes down to 10%. I would say at the moment, we haven't, ignore the all-day privates for the moment. We put that in there. We just have to, that's in there because it's a different calculation for wages because it's 7 hours, not like 2 times 6, 2 times 3. So if we change this now to 309, there we go. We're hitting that 22.33 commission, which is approximately, if I was 378, which was going to be our today's proposal, the commission is 22%. And if we alter the base rate, it's up to 22.3. If we went up to 81, it's 21. If we went to 79, it's 23. So based on that and following our recommendations, if we go to a base rate of 309, I think wages of 80 euros an hour.
You don't need to do psychological pricing on the instructor wage, do we, Tal?
Because I'm an instructor.
And once again, if we look at it, I just did a quick. So if we go up 80%, 80 euros, increase at 18 euros, that's a 29% increase in wages.
Sorry, are ski instructors well renowned for being psychologically impervious to any influence? Or just you?
I think that looks pretty sensible, Carl. The 80. I mean, you go back right to the very beginning where we wanted to pay the most, and our philosophy has always been to pay. We've let that slip. We want the best people working for this syndicate, and part of that is paying well. So, you were saying, Joe, weren't you? Switzerland's paying pretty similar now. Have the right people. So,
yeah,
80 sounds good to me.
Yeah, Switzerland are paying high. They're paying. They're paying level 4s to go over there and do 60 euros an hour.
Yeah,
it's not very different to us.
All right.
It's different.
Does that sound all right? So, that sheet, you can go in and muck around with that sheet and have a look at it or whatever you want. But I think just off the top of my head, that would be like 80 euros with a 309 base rate is kind of what would be.
I'm going to mute you.
Any thoughts? Anyone? Anything stick out there for anyone?
Yeah, the only thing I'd say was you might want to use some of that to put some funds into an incentive scheme. That's all, for sales to coaches or anybody else. That's all. I haven't got a way of doing that. So if anybody's got an idea how that might work, then that could be proposed. But like I said, I think if we tonight, I think those numbers are great. I think we can go. I'm certainly happy with where we seem to have settled on there, 309 and 80. But I'm also happy that actually that 80 might be a bit flexible if anybody comes up with an idea that they think might help sales.
Yeah. John, can I just say on that incentive scheme, I think it would have to be really simple, because otherwise, 80 years an hour, there's a fair incentive already there, isn't there?
I really agree with that.
Yeah.
I think, Ross, one of the cool things that I think would be amazing for you to do next year is like a ski instructor sales kind of training course for about an hour for us all.
I would absolutely love to do that. not that I'm good at it, but I've got a few tricks up my sleeve I could definitely share with some people.
Awesome. And I think that's from our point of view, if we're talking as a bureau, that was very much the incentive type thing. It is a really good thing that we need to sort of get in, but at the same time, there's that chat that we talked about last time about that as a team, we're all out there working for the same price. We're working for the same wage, and we're working together for each other. And not trying to create this sort of administrative friction, because if I work this lesson, I get a euro more or whatever. It's like, just, I don't know.
I like that, Carl. No administrative friction. That's a good thing. Joe, you got your hand up? Yeah,
there will still be. I think we need to accept this as a whole bunch of instructors. That there will be some times when there isn't there just isn't that money in the sessions. So pre-Christmas, we've always said, we've got clinics running, they're absolute budget. We run them at break even. Ski Club in Manchester, I think, is going to be tricky this winter because we've already promised them a price. So I think the coaches are going to have to be a bit flexible on that stuff, on pre-Christmas stuff to kick the season off. We've always been really strong on that pre-season. People have always worked really well on the hill before Christmas. We want to keep that going, and I know there's bookings in there for the Ski Club of Manchester, certainly, and I don't know if kind of the early season clinics with VIP and stuff like that might mean that people have to go, okay, well, I understand that there's no other work out there, so I'm going to work at a slightly lower rate. I think I certainly accept that as a coach.
Yep.
Yeah, the principle isn't changing, is it? That's always been the principle, but it's good to remind ourselves of that, I think.
I think there's another thing here, which is, we spent a lot of time going through spreadsheets here and looking at profit margins and stuff like that. We haven't really ever done this as a 3, as a 4 with whoever's been running the office. We've kind of set our prices. And we've gone, our priority is always to get people on the hill, and if we get enough people on the hill, actually the numbers, they look after themselves, and they have on normal seasons. They've looked after themselves. And I still want to be part of a syndicate that actually the emphasis is on getting people working and getting people teaching. And I don't want to go to a place where we end up going, this is 2% more profitable than that session, so we're going to do that. I want to get people out there teaching people, doing our job, and I think it will still look after itself if we maintain those values. And I think we're going through a really big change in terms of the structure and in terms of decision making. and we haven't spoken about those values very much. And I'm certainly very keen to make sure that they are retained. I've found it hard, I suppose, these past few years. We all have found it quite hard to have those, to keep those things at the forefront when there's some existential threats knocking about the world. But that's the kind of syndicate I still want to be part of, despite having looked at spreadsheets for an hour.
No, that's such a valid point. And I tell you what, the number of times over the last 20 years, the three of us have had a dilemma, or something's been going wrong, or what are we going to do about this? And we've gone, yeah, hang about, boys. Let's not forget what we're doing, what this is all about. And you have to come back to those values, otherwise it's a slippery slope. So I think that's really valid.
Cool. Well, I reckon based on what you said, Jai, obviously with me being in a slightly different time zone, I'll smash out and get the rest of those figures out overnight, so you guys can wake up to it in your inbox.
Okay, and it might be worth. I might just have a look back over the last document that we've got, where we have actually got our values written down, and
yeah,
we can research those.
I'll try and I'll send it out, and we'll. Have you? Did everyone get that spreadsheet that Paul just got? That shared, because I'll just add it as another sheet on the bottom of there.
Just add it anyway, Cole.
Yeah, I'll add it anyway, and then we'll get the full product suite of pricing, and we'll try and get that finalised.
Cool. Right, that's brilliant. Well, let's see if we can. We've had an hour. Let's see if we can be absolutely done by an hour and a half. So it gives us 25 minutes to go through. Rich, your bits and pieces, talk about coach recruitment and freestyle. So I'll see if we can keep us on a time thing there. Are you happy, Rich, to talk a bit through your ideas?
Yes.
Real.
So something I spoke to Paul about in March, I think, was that I would like to start doing a bit more work outside of Val d'Isere. I've done a little bit. Some of the stuff I've been doing with Terry, and I've just had some clients book me to do some other stuff. And I talked through with Paul some ways of making that into a sort of an official thing, I suppose. And Paul came up with the name of TDC Tarentaise, so it would encompass Saint-Foy, Villaroger, going into Les Arcs, and La Rosière. And I spoke with him a little bit about different ways it could run. And I think if you guys are up for it, the easiest and best way it could run is that it was part of the Val d'Isere syndicate. So I would remain on the planner as a Val d'Isere coach. We would have some pages on the website that were talking about TDC Tarentaise and what TDC Tarentaise were offering. And from my point of view, I would like that to essentially offer off-piste and ski touring work. I don't really want to market for that, for on-piste work. And then the inquiries would come directly to me, and I would liaise with Anna. I would either have a login to I think probably easiest if I had a login to the planner, so I could then book those sessions into the planner, and I would liaise with Anna where necessary. So I would then those sessions would be booked in as normal. I would earn as normal, but it would just be flagged up that I was working in a different place. If there was any more, I mean, something really, it's sort of a personal thing to start with. And I guess if there is more demand, then I'd like to get a list from each instructor at the start of the season of whether they were up for doing any work in different resorts and which resorts they might want to go on piste or off piste or whatever. And then, if there was a demand, I can start sharing that work around, and potentially, I guess, in the longer term future, if there is a lot of demand, we could have extra coaches that were on the planner but were essentially working as TDC Tarentaise people, but potentially could work in Val d'Isere if they were needed as well. So to keep it simple, I guess the hours I would do in terms of liaising with the clients, with the inquiries and that planning stuff will just go down as bureau hours, like everyone else's bureau hours. And that's it really, I guess.
Well, Rich, we did discuss potentially you actually getting a higher hourly wage.
But yeah, so
that's another way we could go.
We did. So yeah, I guess there's two ways that me thinking about it, I've come around to that maybe the bureau idea is the best idea, but basically I just wanted to be in control of the bookings so that when the client contacted the TDC Tarentaise, it would come to me and then I can liaise with them based on, because it's going to be more sort of off-piste work. I think that's quite important. So for that extra work done, originally I was thinking maybe I should get an extra percentage of an hourly rate, and then I would not then get anything for any of the hours I did on for the emails or any other work I might have to do. The other way would be to bill the bureau for the hours, and I don't know what everyone else thinks, but I figured that seeing as everyone else is doing it on the kind of the way of keeping track of their hours and billing the bureau for them, that might have been a simpler way of doing it rather than starting to change the percentage that I earn for those lessons.
I think we could do it either way, because I mean Gav's sitting on this bureau but will not be billing for Val d'Isere hours because his, the way Teen works is already sort of established within the bigger syndicate.
Yeah.
But I don't think, we need to work what's the best way to do it, Rich, but necessarily, I don't think it necessarily has to, just because other people are doing it that way. If that particular project, if we think it would work better doing it a different way, I think you could just get a bigger wage for the work done for that. And then if you're doing stuff for the bureau, so you come to the meeting and you bill for that time as other bureau members would. You've almost got two separate roles within the bureau there.
Yeah. I mean, that could be fine. I think essentially, like, my plan would be to keep the pricing the same as all the Val d'Isere stuff. And I know that a lot of the schools down the valley are cheaper, but from my point of view, if people want to book me as a TDC coach, they're going to pay the Val d'Isere rate, basically. And so we don't need to right now decide on how I'll be remunerated for that. But if people were up for that, the overall idea of it, then that, that's probably what we need to decide on now.
Sounds great.
I think that's wicked, Rich, and I'd be keen to take part in that if you've got enough work. I'd just personally, for me, and I'll be quick, I'd say it's easier if you took, say, 90 an hour for that out of your 103 euros that you'll be charging, because you might put 1,000 hours of work into trying to get those clients and only do one lesson.
Yeah, I mean that's
the syndicate.
Yeah, I mean that was my original thought, to do it like that, like a higher thing, and it's almost like a separate thing to the bureau, so that would be fine for me. But yeah, I'm up for people's thoughts on it, basically.
I agree with Terry, so I'm in.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true for everybody. If somebody's kind of knocking out 500 hours every month, that's going to be a big issue on this stuff. So we need to be prepared at all times to go, well, I've done this many hours for the bureau. This is where I'm at, and for something that Rich is setting up at the moment, and if he knocks in a whole load of hours, it's going to cost more money than it's ever going to take. Which is kind of okay if it's a long-term project, but and it's going to get bigger. But I see this being, reasonably small, certainly initially. Rich, probably just you working on it, maybe somebody else working on it as well. So we just have to be a little bit careful that we're not kind of banging out a whole load of hours that are billed to the syndicate for something that effectively only covers your wage in terms of income.
Yeah.
I think other stuff, just in terms of the project itself, it might be nice to get some accounting on that project, some kind of internal accounting, which should be pretty easy to do. So we just keep a record of actually what has gone through it, so we can see how it's happening. You'd be interested in doing that as well.
Yeah.
I wonder if what about transport and stuff? Are there any extra costs that are going to be that you can foresee? I'm thinking taxis could be a huge cost if we don't think about it.
Yeah, I mean, so if the clients need the taxis, then they're going to be paying for those on top. So one way we ran something with when Terry and I ran our thing in Saint Foy, the clients were all staying in Saint Foy, and I'd prearranged Snowdrone to pick them up each morning, and so and take them to whatever resort they wanted to go. So I think the assumption is, if someone is going to book me to say ski in Saint Foy, it's up to them to get to Saint Foy. If they want my help with that, that's totally fine. But there's going to be no inclusion of taxis. In some cases, there's buses and other stuff, but certainly any transport costs like that are on top for sure. Yeah, and I agree. It is going to be something for me to start with, and Terry's just shown a bit of interest, which is cool. But so I would be happy just to earn a slightly higher rate, if you like. I certainly don't want to bill the Bureau for loads of hours that I've done because I wanted to do them, to set this up. So yeah.
On the flip though, Rich, I think we need to keep, just like everything, keep reviewing it. So if this does start to grow arms and legs, and you go, well, I've built this up and I'm just getting an alleyway, we just need to look at it again.
Yeah, totally. Because I guess looking into the future, and I hadn't even thought about this until, I thought I'd kind of gone over things a bit more in my mind. But, if there is a big demand, we could have a number of instructors doing it, and then I might be doing quite a lot of organisational work. So I guess it would be fair to get paid for that. But then there'd be a good amount of income coming in. So, but yeah, we'll have to see how it goes. And I'm certainly not thinking it's going to be a massive thing. Certainly not from the start. I want it to sort of grow organically, and we'll just see what sort of demand there is for it, really.
I'll tell you what, Rich. Why don't you keep a record of your hours anyway?
Yeah, I will. Yeah. I mean, that's an
anyway, which won't paid anyway. But
yeah,
just we've had this discussion. It's been noted. So
yeah,
we'll come to a fair agreement when it's all done and it's set up and it's running well.
Yeah,
let's get it happening.
Cool.
Super. We're rattling through things. Right, coach recruitment's next on the list. We've had Ross has proposed somebody, and Rich, you were going to mention somebody as well. So we've got Dave T, Ross, haven't we, that's been in the mix. Have you spoken to Dave?
I haven't had an email from him yet.
Right, okay. So we've contacted Dave, I think.
So yeah, David T, he's if you don't know him, he works for New Generation Ski School, 31. I said to this guy on the phone the other day, just not too old, not too young, he's worked in Val d'Isère for I think 4 years now. His background is racing, good skier, good coach, turns up on time, friendly, and I think he'd just be a great addition to the team. And he's looking at the moment. So
okay, well, we sort of took the decision before this meeting to contact him. There's a space with Joe having left, so it's really whether we want to take somebody else. So Rich, you had mentioned somebody from Oxygen. I can't remember her name. French girl.
Yeah, French girl called Emmy. She actually lives at mine in one of the little flats. She's French. She's got an English boyfriend. She speaks really good English. She's obviously French qualified, which is something that we've always only taken on Basie people in the past, but that might be something that needs to change if there's not enough Basie people coming through. And I think that really taking it on an individual basis is probably a better way of judging whether people are going to be good ski coaches. It's not easy to find girls either. So, but her background is she did quite a few seasons in La Rosière with the ESF. I think she came through the system there, and she's been at Oxygen for maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. And I haven't sort of really even spoken to her about this at all. I really started thinking about her for the position since I've been down here, but I know that she's been getting a little bit pissed off with the treatment she gets at Oxygen. and I think she'd be a good addition to the team. You know, she certainly shares our values, and I don't think her, you know, it's not compatible with Oxygen. So yeah, she should be someone to think about, I think.
Rich, here's a question for you then. You might not know the answer, but for me, it's less about Basie, and it's more about their understanding of teaching and learning and the way they would go about their business on the hill. So, you know, she might be and I don't know her, so I could be very wrong here. But she could be a lovely girl who shares our values, but doesn't necessarily understand teaching the same way that we do. And she's there, sort of, you know, stand in a line, wait your turn, bend your knees, and all that stuff. I don't know. Do you have a sort of sense of how she teaches? Does she have that kind of sophistication around the language? And
I kind of think she does. I think she's pretty into it. She's into the skiing. She's like interested by it, and you know, how to actually make people better. You know, actually coaching them rather than just sort of trotting out the same standard stuff. But I haven't actually ever had experience of her teaching.
Okay.
So I guess, you know, we might need some sort of interview process, or and maybe she might want to sit in on some of the coaching that Giles does at the start of the season, just to get her on the same page. But yeah, no, I guess the overall answer is I don't know, but I do kind of get the sense that she is into it. She's into the coaching, and you know, that's
a good start. Right, Terry, you had your hand up then, Steve.
Yeah, so I know Emmy quite well. I've known her for probably 3 or 4 years now, and I also know Dave T really well. And I was going to throw, if we're going French, I was going to throw Antoine from Oxygen in the mix. He's a snowboard instructor. He's a ski instructor. He's a very, very accomplished off-piste skier. He skied a lot of all the big peaks around the Tarentaise, some of them with me. He's a great skier. His English is kind of flawless, a bit like Emmy's. He speaks some Italian too. And I was just going to throw that name in there. And I was going to suggest him doing the level 2 teaching week or the level 3 teach or something like that to get him on board with Basie terminology. But maybe Richard's idea of doing...
fuck, I've dropped out of the meeting.
200, 280, 350.
Yeah, so I was just going to... If I was going to go for a French instructor and anyone from Oxygen, I would...
manually, what?
This one.
Rich, I'm just going to mute you because we can hear quite a bit of background.
I think that's Steve.
That's not me. That's not me. Sorry.
Oh, Steve, is it? Oh, well, Steve wants to say something now anyway. So go on, Steve. You're looking confused.
Can you hear me? Because it's saying that I've lost connection. You can hear me all right, can you?
Yeah.
All right, sorry. All right. Oh, you're back again. Yeah, I didn't hear the last sort of 2 minutes of Terry talking then, but I mean, I don't know the Semi girl and I don't know the Dave guy, but I mean, my always take on things is that if I'm teaching somebody or somebody asks me, you know, you available? I say I'm not available. I always feel like I can personally give a personal recommendation because I know the person. And Ben Language used to say exactly the same thing to me, that we all know we've all done exactly the same exam, done the same technique exactly. So I'm not disputing the fact that they might be good or not good, but I would have doubts about being able to say that until somebody had proved themselves. And the other point I wanted to say is that if you go down that line, then next year when people go, oh, TDC are taking on all these different nationalities, and suddenly it'll be like 50.
Oh, we lost you, Steve.
Just on the punchline.
A little bit worried about doing it.
We lost you for a minute there, but I think we got the gist, Steve. Yeah, I mean, it would definitely be a change to what we've done before, and I think we would have to feel comfortable that whoever comes in, if they're not, you know, haven't come through Basie, that there is an understanding there. That said, you can get people who come through Basie who end up not doing a good job. So, you know, your point, Rich, that it's done on an individual basis. So yeah, Steve, I think we hear you. We need to feel comfortable that if we can't take, you know, if we were handing a booking over or client over to somebody else in the team, that you feel comfortable that that person's going to do a brilliant job and be be speaking the same, well, literally the same language and metaphorically. I don't know whether you can hear me, Steve. Probably not.
Dave T's a great shout though. If he's interested, then
Who?
he's a shoo-in, isn't he?
Who?
Dave T. He's brilliant.
Well, we're waiting to hear back from him, I think. So, you know, I mean, my sense on the instructor thing, taking on board instructors, you know,
Who sent Dave T an email?
Pardon, Joe?
Who's sent Dave T an email?
Oh, I thought you said he hadn't replied to your email.
He hasn't emailed me. So Ross said that he was going to email me. He hasn't emailed me.
Yeah, so I've contacted him, and given him your email, Joe. But what I'll do is I'll give him a ring a bit later and just fill him in on stuff and tell him to drop you an email, Joe. Don't worry, I'm on it.
Okay.
Are we happy here to say yes to Dave T? You know, I've seen him knocking around a little bit. You know, I don't like him when he's got his wingsuit on. Apart from that, I think he's a lovely fellow. So I think we can take Dave T on. We know the background that he's got and everything else. So I think we can say Dave T if he's up for it. We're up for it. I'm looking at the planner for this winter, and I'm just counting coaches. So we got Chai. The next full-time one is Kieran, Kim, Nico, Rich, Ross, Steve, and Terry. That's 8.
Dave T9.
Can I ask? Is Dave Walker? Is he full time? There's no.
I don't know if he wants to go full time next year or not. He hasn't said yet.
Okay.
So
because there's also a chance. Sorry, Ross. There's also a chance that me, Kim, and Dave will be doing Basie weeks next year.
True.
Yeah.
I mean, they tend to be quiet times. Those Basie weeks, they tend to be quieter times.
Okay,
yeah.
well, that's good to hear. But yeah.
Well, there's also potential we could start doing a bit more Basie prep as well, if that was okay. But yeah, that's quiet times. Cole, you wanted to say something. We're going to wrap this up in a minute, but
No, I was just it's good. I mean, I don't know what Rich feels like. I don't know this Emmy girl, but I mean, departing into an international scene, that's something we've sort of talked about over the years.
well, I mean, if the English is as flawless as people are saying, and we can have some kind of check on the way people teach, it's no different really to having had Lena on board, and we've, you know, the Basie background is the difference. So, you know, it's how we understand someone's teaching. I quite like the idea of them sitting in on a week of something, Terry. That's got potential, but you'd hope that that's just maybe a bit of learning a bit of terminology, and they'd already understand their teaching philosophy, and they'd know what they were doing. They'd already know that. They wouldn't be going on that course to learn how to teach. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't be right for us. So yeah, I'm not sure what the way forward is with the Emmy and Antoine. We perhaps need to decide whether we want one more person on top of Dave, or 2, or 0. You know, and then the conversation. Because if we don't want anybody, then we don't need to waste our time talking about it. If we want one, then we need to decide whether we. You know, I do like the idea of having another female instructor. That'd be brilliant. I don't know Antoine. He might be a lovely chap. I'm sure he is.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't particularly coming into it saying we needed another instructor either. I just thought I'd throw the name into the hat, and I haven't actually even asked her. She might not be interested, but I just thought she'd be a good candidate. But yeah, we need to. That's the first thing for us, isn't it? If Dave T is up for it, then we've kind of got him, and we need to then think about numbers-wise whether we want another instructor or not, really.
Well, you know what, Rich? If you're setting up something that's going to potentially bring a bit more work in, there's every chance we'll go back to pre-COVID levels next season if no other disaster befalls us. You know, and we've lost. We had more.
Yeah, we did. Yeah,
order and
yeah.
Okay, so just very quickly on that, I mean, rather than if we didn't want to go French or Italian or international, the other thing we could do is actually put it out there that we're looking for people, because I don't feel that we've done that. And I'm pretty sure a lot of very good instructors would jump ship and even resort to come for 80 euros per hour or to work for us with our philosophies and to work off piste and all the cool stuff that we do. So yeah, that's the other option.
Very, very good point, and that's something we've talked about, Gav, isn't it? For teen as well. So, I mean, do we want to just put this one on ice, just as in we're not going to resolve it this evening? People have a think.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. I think, yeah, it could take a while to resolve.
But not for too long. Perhaps make a decision on email.
I will get in touch with Dave and I'll get him to decide what he's going to do, Dave Walker. I'll get in touch with Dave T, or Dave will get in touch with me and I'll start that process of getting him on board. I need to talk to Hamish, because I think I didn't count Hamish in the 9, because I think Hamish has said, although not directly to me, that he's very busy next winter with building work, so I don't think he's going to be a full-time coach.
Yeah, Jai, I emailed everybody about uniform, and so Hamish has got back saying, I've currently accepted a large quantity of building work. One project will run into the winter for sure. Due to this, I'm going to be reserved with how available I am teaching this coming winter. Yeah. So he's definitely thinking he's going to be limited on his amount of teaching he does, even to the point of it might only be 1 or 2 weeks.
Okay. And Hamish has asked actually if he can wear an old uniform rather than buy a new uniform, hasn't he?
Yeah, that's correct.
Are we happy with that as a bureau? If he just does a few weeks, you know, like it's the kind of thing that Ali Brown was doing this winter. And actually, I think
I'm happy with that. I mean, I think
less than 1
I
day.
think probably there'll be a uniform we can stick him in. You know,
Yeah.
whether it's PGs or Coles or someone's. I think.
I mean,
Ben.
uniform.
Yeah.
Maybe Language in a similar position as well, isn't he? He's going to be coming out and doing a bit.
Yeah.
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 I think in the uniform order, we'll probably put in a few extras or spares, and then that might be the solution. And if push comes to shove and there's nothing else and he has to wear an old one, so be it.
Yeah. So just very quickly to tie up the whole Emmy Antoine thing.
Rich, do you want to quickly check if she would be interested, hypothetically?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll give her a call, no problem.
You know, and then it's just trying to work out how we'd really get a feel for what they'd be like teaching wise. You know, whether you could just do that in an interview. I mean, I remember sitting and having a chat with you,
really I'd definitely trust Emmy's teaching of certainly up to advanced, you know, up to Dev Plus. I'm not sure about challenges and bumps for sure. I'd be quite skeptical about that, and not off piste.
But you think she'd have the approach, you know, the sort of learner focused approach, and
I really think all people coming through the French system need to kind of have that check to an extent, and not telling people to stand up, go around the turn, and you know, like an outcome focus rather than just an inputs all the time. You know, that's something I'm quite weary of with the French system.
That's what I mean. Do you think she is stand up? She's not that.
That we don't know. I've only ever seen her teaching really on magic carpets and sort of blues, and I see her quite a lot. The only advantage I'd say about Antoine is that he's absolutely solid off piste, and I'd say he's got the same skill set on piste, but he's not a female, and I'm acutely aware of how valuable that is.
Yeah, I mean that's we need to wrap this up, don't we? I think that's the point that Steve was making. You know, if you've got somebody in the team who is doing stand up to go around the turn, and then you're going, oh, I don't fancy to passing my clients to them. You know, we'd have to make sure that that's not the case. So yeah, okay, that's the first step forwards, isn't it? Just find out whether find out whether both of them hypothetically are interested. Right, final thing on the list was freestyle free ski clinics, and we just think that there's potential for us to do something there that we haven't done for a while. So, Joe, that was your point, wasn't it? Whether anybody
I just think we're being totally honest about where this is coming from. We have had this as a product before. We did run a few of them. I've just seen how successful, popular the Mountain Masters stuff is. But all they ever do is take them to the stud and then run them up and down the stud. It's pretty. I think there's a whole lot more to skiing that we could offer to kids than that. Kind of a free ski philosophy to it. I think we should try and push that product again. I think we may need to revamp a little bit the content of what we do on our kids stuff. The teen sessions that we've already got in the kind of on the website at least.
Just rename them.
Maybe give them a better name. Maybe think about days in the park. Think about which coaches are interested in running them, and then actually blocking those coaches off. Because the problem is the reason why we don't run those clinics is because we take privates in those weeks, because it's easy to take privates because we go, well, we'll just fill up the planner and then we'll worry about anything else later. And so this is not really coming from a money perspective. It's really going, actually, we want to try and do that kind of work. I think it helps with our kind of reputation. I'm sure there'll be some instructors who fancy doing a bit more freestyle than they have done. And I think the freestyle will start off being pretty shit, actually. I think it'll just be, through the park a few times one day. The next day you might go, I don't know, skiing the bumps, doing a bit of flatland switch. But that's I'm kind of showing why I'm not necessarily the perfect person to put this program together.
But that could be something that sits under the commercial
stuff.
My
daughter is a 3-time French champion, and she didn't get that from nowhere.
But maybe not.
She got that. She got that from the Les Arcs Free Ski Academy.
Maybe she got it from her uncle.
Yeah.
But that could be something that sits under the sort of commercial role, Ross. I wonder, how we revamp that side of things, and looking at how not to the detriment of the good stuff that we do, but Anna's had so much on her plate that she's keener to put privates on because it's more straightforward. So we do want to run clinics not just for money, but because that's a good I think that's a good distinguishing feature of what we did when we set it up, that we run clinics 3 days, not the whole week and all that kind of stuff.
And it makes our stuff more accessible as well. I'm not saying that people that will come on the clinics are going to be short of cash, but those people who balk at the price of a private session, I'll tell you what, we've got this other stuff that's actually a third of the cost and actually sometimes quite a lot more fun.
And it pulls in new clients as well, doesn't it? If you just do privates, you end up stuck with the same client body forever then. Terry, a parting comment?
Yeah, I could defo run that, and I could for sure incorporate that into the off-piste stuff that I'll be doing. I think there's actually more scope to be doing it with youngsters off-piste than there is to be doing it with youngsters freestyle. My experience of freestyle with kids is like trying to get them to slide a rail in a week is a nightmare. Like they just can't do it. They're rubbish at it. Eventually they can do it, but it takes years and years. Whereas off-piste and, especially at Easter, skiing spring snow with a bunch of 12-year-olds, I'm not talking about going crazy. I'm talking about like edge of the piste stuff with some backpacks on to make them feel like heroes. But I think that's definitely a product that we could sell, and we could sell that to existing private kids as well, maybe stuff like that.
But I think I agree with that. But I think as well with the freestyle stuff, you can get the kids, 360ing on a box, and they still feel like a hero. Like they're pros in the park. So there's that as well.
Even if they don't feel like heroes, they tell their mates they've been on a freestyle camp. I mean, legends. Steve,
can we call it free? Can we call it free ski, and then it covers both?
Yeah.
Can we think of it?
Yeah.
Product.
Yeah.
And then when the problem with tying ourselves to either end of that spectrum is that depending on the kids that are in the group, you go, oh, fucking hell, I can't do off-piste this week, or fucking hell, they're all so shit, I can't go anywhere near a park. But if you call it free ski, you can It doesn't matter what you do.
It's
all
in
free
direct
ski.
competition with what Leo Talafay's doing, which is in direct competition with the Les Arcs free ski camps, right? So we'd just be doing a slightly more chilled version of what Leo's doing, because I see his kids going around in their, you know, they've got like a uniform, like a club kit. And,
Yeah, but they're local kids. They're local kids. That's like
Yeah.
a club of sport. We're not in competition with them at all. It's
okay,
we're talking about holidaymaker kids. You know, the way I see the market for this is
yeah,
some of the
Hunters.
kids that have already done the mountain master stuff and actually are bored of doing gates. Yeah, definitely holiday makers. Yeah.
Super. Steve's back in the room. You've got your hand up, Steve. Is there something you want to sign off with?
No, so I lost everyone at 10 minutes. I'm back now. Yeah, I was going to say I've always been despite what people think about my build, I'm always very introducing basic freestyle into every day, whether it's adults or kids. I'm always a big, in fact, I'm a basic project on it.
There we go.
I have to sort of get involved in the fundamental sort of stuff for freestyle, you know, not at a high level and competition level, but I'm always up for that sort of thing. So I think it's a really important, massive, important part of ski teaching going forward for everybody at all ages.
That's good to hear, Steve. I think, you know, we've definitely got people on the team that can do it, haven't we? It's great. Right. Any other business?
No. I've just one real quick, just hijack this for 30 seconds. Gav, are you still online? That answers my question.
Technically.
Hello. I am.
Oh, there he is. Hey, Gav, you're on the TDC team phone?
Yep.
I'm just sending you a few WhatsApps, but my phone's telling it it's not getting through. Could you just WhatsApp me on one of my numbers and just make contact? That'd be awesome.
Yeah, you've come through, Colin Tanner. Yeah, you've come through. FR. When
Yep.
was that? Oh no, it was.
Oh yeah, there it is. They've all just gone through now.
Yeah, one's just gone through. That one this morning has only just come through as well.
Yeah, I can contact you via that. It doesn't need to be for everyone. Cheers.
Hijacking over. Great stuff. Right, well, thanks everybody for making the effort to join us. I think we've made some great steps forward there. Are we happy for me to, or do you think somebody needs to email the rest of the team and let them know we've had this meeting and that we have this bureau in place and that we have some roles? Are we happy with that?
Yeah, good idea.
Is the idea then, PG, just they can just watch this video if they want to catch up?
Yeah.
You were talking about it being transcribed. Is that an automatic thing?
Yeah, it's automatically transcribed. The recording is.
Oh wow, cool. Well, they can just read that. That's excellent.
I don't think they'll want to read it. I think they'd probably rather have a summary and 4 bullet points.
Yeah, very brief summary would probably be a bit more.
I'll send over the agenda.
I've got like kind of minutes.
But I will keep this recording because, you know, if in a year's time we go, what the hell were we talking about? You know, we can actually listen to the recording. It will be there, but yeah. Okay, I'll send an email out at some stage, yeah?
Yeah.
The next week.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
All right, cheers all.
Splendid. All right, guys. Have a good evening.
Yeah. Bye.
Cheers, guys. Nice
Bye.
one.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.